Sudden, things have changed. Stay inside and we will survive. World isn't past, the earth
Good day, everyone. I'm glad you are joining. Keep on joining. Continue sharing the link to other students as well, so that we can start our tutorial today together. My name is Vuyani. I'm doing my second year at Nelson Mandela University, studying BEng in Mechatronics. Today I'll be the one taking you for mathematics revision for Maths Paper 1, Grade 11, Grade 12. I'll be taking you for maths. I hope you have met one of the profs yesterday in physical sciences. Maybe let's just take 1 or 2 minutes to wait for maybe 2 people or 3 other people to join. Then after that, maybe at 15:50 we can start our today's tutorial. Feel free to ask questions on the comment section on YouTube, and also please don't forget to like, subscribe on the link which we have on our live stream. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so that whenever we are live, you'll be able to be notified. Awesome. Let's start today our today's tutorial. Today we'll be dealing with solving for x. Question 1. Always when we are solving our mathematics paper 1, basically maths paper 1 is basically about solving for x. If we look clearly, when we are solving functions, it all revolves around x. So today I'll be doing solving for x, question 1. Always the question 1 of maths paper 1 doesn't change. It's always the case that you have to solve for x. Now, this is our question adapted from November 2017 for grade 11. In grade 12, you won't be taught how to solve for x. You are taught in grade 11. They just ask you in your final in your June exams. When you're writing your June exam, that's when they'll start showing their question of solving for x. So in other words, they know that from previous year, which is grade 11, you have been taught how to solve for x. So that's why I started by having a grade 11 one, because the solving for x is the same. Grade 11 and grade 12, it's the same. They just change 1 or 2 things on those. The last question, which is basically question which is always question number 1.3. That's where it can be tricky, but the setting of the question is always the same. So without wasting much time, we're gonna start by solving our x. But just to give you an overview of where x is coming from, x is not something which just came in grade 10, as we always say, but to be honest, it started when we were in grade 1, but we didn't notice that. For instance, we were told that in grade 1, we were told that 1 plus 1, I think people can't. Okay, yes, we are taught that 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. That was grade 1. Then as time goes by, you hear the teacher saying that, no, let's now say 1 plus the missing box is equal to 2. Then calculate the missing box. that part of the missing box now is now replaced with the value or with the algebraic letter x. So that's when we started solving. So in other words, we just started to solve for x back then, long time ago, but we didn't notice that you're already solving for x. So this is just something we don't have to be afraid. Solving for x is easy, it's nice, and always it's always the case that this is where you have to grab the marks. Question 1, it always 24 to 25 marks. Grab those marks because solving for x is really easy. The questions doesn't change. The way they said they are solved for x question doesn't change. Now going on 1.1.1, we are given in this question that solve for x. Given 1.1.1.1, we are having 2x minus 3 and x plus 7 equal to 0. Now they are saying solve for x in this question. So now looking at this question which we have here, we already see that this question is already been factorized. You're already given factors. Now you only have to take only 1 or 2 steps just to finalize your answer. Now we're gonna say that 2x minus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 7 is equal to 0. So we are taking the factors and equating them to 0 so that we can be able to solve for x. And we know that we only want x, so what do? We transpose our 7 and we're gonna have negative 7, because since it's a positive 7 on the left hand side, when we transpose the positive 7 to the next out after the equal sign, is gonna be negative 7. Now looking now on the 2x minus 3 equal to 0, it's always the case, yes, it's always the case that you just have to transpose the 3, then we only want x. So what are we gonna do now? What we are supposed to do, we just have to divide both sides by 2. We divide both sides by 2, then we are left with our x, which is equal to 3 over 2. So basically our correct two answers is x equal to 3 over 2 and x is equal to negative 7. Then you get your 2 marks. So always when you're having this kind of equation given already, you're already given factors. It has been factorized for you already. You just have to equate the brackets and equal them to 0. Then after that you solve for x and makes x the subject of the formula. Please don't forget to ask questions. If you don't understand, or if you want us to repeat it for you, please don't forget to ask questions. Now let's move forward and look on 1.1.2. We are given that 7x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. Then in brackets, they are saying that leave your answer correct to 2 decimal places. The moment you see that bracket, leave your answer correct to 2 decimal places. Don't trouble yourself. Don't try to have calculate it and factorize it having factors. It's gonna become monotonous to you, and sometimes it will even lead you to wrong answers. Just use what we call a quadratic formula. So what is the quadratic formula? Basically, initially we are having that, let's just say we are having a quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c, and let's say we are just equating it to 0. Now this is where we are going to get our quadratic formula from. We are just going to say x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So now from the quadratic formula, from the quadratic equation which we have above, this is where we are gonna formulate our quadratic equation from. Henceforth, we are having now negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So now in our question, we were given the equation which is 7x squared plus 3x minus 2 equivalent to 0. So if you can't be able to see just that this is my b, Don't stress yourself. Just come here and say, this is your A, B, and C. Always, always, the value of A, it goes with its sign. The value of B, it also goes with its sign. The value of C, it always goes with its sign. Now, we have already done the most important job. Now, what are we just gonna do? We're just gonna go to our quadratic formula. I'm just gonna say x, and what is our b? Our b is positive 3, so we're gonna have negative 3 plus or minus square root of, what is our b? Because it's b squared minus 4ac, so our b is positive 3 all squared minus 4. And what is our a? Our a is 7. What is our c? Our c, it's negative 2 divided by 2. And what is our a? It's 7. So I can also advise you that you can just write that a, b, c on your quadratic equation which you are given, so that you can know the values and you not be confused. Then after that, don't worry yourself too much. Now just use your calculator. Use your calculator if you arrive to this step. So on this step, we're gonna have x to be equal to negative 3 plus or minus 3 squared, it's 9. 9 minus 4 times 7, 28. So we can just start by what is in the bracket. Then we can have, when you calculate using your calculator, you're going to have your 65 there. Then 2 times 7 is 14. Then now you can use your calculator now. You can use your calculator so that you can get the two values of x. So always when you see the question say leave your answer correct to 2 decimal places, please don't worry, just use the quadratic formula. Others say it's a bus, just use the bus. It will be fast and it will always give you the correct answer. It will never give you wrong answer. You just have to put put the values and correctly on the quadratic formula, and after that you're gonna have correct answers. So if you are having your calculator with you, you're gonna have, yes, we're gonna have our x to be equal to, if you write it correctly and if you use your calculator correctly, you're gonna have negative 0.79, or x is equal to 0.36. Then you are done solving your question. Then you are done solving your question. Then you are done solving your question. Then you're done solving your question. Yes, you have to know the quadratic formula by your head. You must know it as it is. You must know your quadratic equation by your head. You have to know it so that you can be able to apply it. But in grade 12, sometimes they can give you a formula sheet, but just for you, you must always know it by your head, so that you don't you don't have mistakes and trying to substitute whilst you're about to write and say like, no, I'll look at the formula sheet, because sometimes it's not guaranteed that you'll be given it, especially in grade level. Now, if moving to 1.1.3, on 1.1.3, we are given square root of x minus 1, then plus 3 is equal to x. Now, we know that according to the rules of exponents, now we have this, let me just write something here. According to the rules of exponent, we know that a square root of a m is the same as a m times 1 over 2, because the square root is always illustrating 1 over 2. Or now, the square root is always m then it's, yes, it's 1 over 2. Now, looking in our question now, we are given that root of x minus 1 plus 3 is equal to x. How do we solve this one? Let's transpose positive 3 to the other side. Don't forget this row of exponent is going to assist us in the process. We're gonna have x minus 1 equal to x minus 3. No, now in order for us to remove the square root, we have to square both sides. We have to square both sides so that we can be able to remove this square root. Now, squaring both sides, that will lead us to have this and this. They'll cancel each other. Then you'll be left with x minus 1 is equal to x minus 3 or 3 all squared. Now, we can now solve our x now. Algebraically, we can say x minus 1 is equal to x minus 3. You can even open the brackets because when it's squared, which means the bracket is being repeated twice. So you're going to have x minus 3 and x minus 3. Then after that, don't worry yourself. Then you can solve it. Now, we know that x minus 1 is equal to, we're going to have x times x, which is x squared. Then x times negative 3, it's negative 3x. Negative 3 multiplied by x, it's negative 3x. Negative 3 multiplied by negative 3, it's positive 9. I know now you know how to solve, and you can be able to solve for x and multiply two brackets, binomials. Now we're gonna have x minus 1 equal to x squared. We know that these are like terms, so we're gonna have negative 6x plus 9. Then we can now group the like terms. So we're gonna have x squared minus 6x. Then we transpose this 6 to this side. We're gonna now have negative x plus 9. Then we transpose this negative 1 to this side. Then it will be plus 1, and we equate it to equal to 0. Then now we're gonna have x squared negative 6x minus x, it's 7, negative 7x. Then 9 plus 1 is positive 10 is equal to 0. Now you can solve this because it's what you know, and you can be able to solve it easily. Now, solving this one, it's easy. We can factor it and find factors so that you can be able to solve this one. Or you can also as well use the quadratic formula, because the quadratic formula will always give you correct answers. If you are not good in finding factors, I always advise people that just use the quadratic formula. It will always assist you because it's going to lead you to have correct answers. But if you're going to use factors, we know that in order for us to get 10, we must have 2 times 5. And when we add or subtract, we are still getting the middle term. So we x, and we know that we must have 5 and 2. Now, in order for us to have the middle term, negative 7, when you say negative 2 minus 5, we still get negative 7. So these are our factors. If you can't get the factors now, I advise that you can always use the quadratic formula. It will always give you the correct answers, the correct factors. Then now, coming to the first question which we had, these are already factors. Now we have solved and now we have factors. So it's now easy. We just have to equate to 0, or x is equal to x minus 5 is equal to 0. Then now your x will be equal to 2, you transpose, or your x will be equal to 5. I am doing this so that you can see the steps, but basically if you are writing, you can just go from this, and now you can just equate this. Then you can just say x is equal to 2 to waste no time, because when you are writing your exam, you are always timed. Now you are not yet done, because I'm having these two values. Now you have to put these two values in the original equation which we are given. What you find on the left hand side, when you substitute the x values which you were able to find on the left hand side, they must always be equal to the right hand side. No, let's start with our 2. We got x is equal to 2. So x when it's 2 is going to be 2 minus 1, then root of 1 it's 1, then 1 plus 3 it's 4. So now we're having 4, and substituting the x here, it's only going to be 2, which means that x is wrong. Now x, when x is equal to 2, it won't be able to balance both sides. So now we'll put here that therefore x is not equal to 2. Or now let's substitute our 5 now. 5 minus 1, it's 4. Then square root of 4, it's 2. Then 2 plus 3, it's 5. And also when you substitute the value of x, you still get 5. Now it's balanced. Our left hand side is equal to our right hand side. So that will be the correct answer now. So now our final answer now will be like this. Don't forget to verify your values to see that which one is the correct answer. So now you have to write that x is not equal to 2 or x is equal to 5 so that you can get both marks. There's always a mark for writing like this, and there is a mark to write like this as well. Please don't be afraid to ask question. Yes, thank you, team. -2 minus 7. Yes, those are the factors. Those are the values, and which gonna lead to us to have factors. Now, if there's no one with any question, let's move. Okay, let's move now and go to number 1.1.4. On our 1.1.4, we are given x squared, which is greater than 3, open bracket, x plus 6. Now, this is an inequality. So when we are dealing with inequalities, at the end, you must have a solution that is going to satisfy your initial inequality. This one is bigger than this one. We get the values, two values. We have to see that where is our solution true when we are done solving it. So without wasting time, here it is. So we know that x squared will be greater than, we know how to solve this. We just have to say 3 times x and we get 3x. 3 times 6, we're going to get positive 18. Now let's just have our equation. X squared minus 3x plus 18 is greater than 0. Now we can find our factors when we are here. The factors, what are the factors? What are the factors? Oh, Tim just asked, why must we check your answer for this question but not for the question? It's always the case that when you are having, you are always advised to prove and check your answers so that you know that your answer is correct. But in this scenario, in this question, it's always the case that when you are having a square root x minus 1 plus 3 is equal to x, you must be able to check, balance it. I always advise that always check in all your question, so replacing them back. But in this only question, it is important for you to put those values so that you can see the true value, because sometimes one of them, they are not correct. I hope I answered you well, Tim. I hope I answered you well. Now coming back to this one. What are the factors of our quadratic equation? What are the factors of this trinomial? What are the factors of this trinomial? What are the factors of this trinomial? So we have 18, 6 times 3, it's 18. And when we say when we say 3 minus 6, we get -3. Yeah, so we can have -6 and positive 3 to be greater than 0. So you can write now critical values. When you're saying critical values, you are now equating it to 0, the inequality. So you're going to have x minus 6 and x plus 3 is equal to 0. Because sometimes other people get afraid of this greater than, or that inequality. So I always advise that, write that these are critical values. Then after that, we're going to have, solving this, x will be equal to 6, or x is equal to -3. As I said earlier, that having this is an inequality. So in order for us to finalize our answer, we have to check on our inequality. We have to check on our inequality that, okay, is this, because an inequality is there for comparison. So now let's check for our inequality where we're going to find our original solution. So we know that a quadratic equation or a trinomial, it's always a parabola. X squared is always like this, or it's like this. It's always the case. These are parabolas. You understand this when we are talking about functions. Now, having this, we got these two values, +1, the -3 is this side. So now we want to check now so that we can check on our inequality if it's balanced. Now, finding the solutions now, this portion from -3 to 6, we have -2, we have -1, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, until we reach 6. Then here we have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to infinity. Then here we have -4, -5, -6, 7 to -infinity. So now we have to check now. Now, I usually start in the middle so that we can see if our solution is, our comparison and solutions, we're going to find them here in the middle. So when we are checking at the middle, we can just pick one value here, and one value, maybe let's use 0. So when substituting x to be 0, it's going to be 0 squared minus 3 times 0 plus 18. So in other words, it's going to be 0 minus, let me change the pen. Okay, great. Now, so it's going to be 0, because 0 squared is 0, minus 3 times 0, it's 0, plus 18. Then we're going to finally end up having +18. And +18 is not greater than 0. So that's a lie. So now we're going to get out of the middle part, because we cannot find the solution, the comparison of this inequality. We cannot find it in here, because if we place a 0 there, we are getting a wrong answer. So what are we going to do now? Let's go outside now. Let's use 7. So when you use 7, it's going to be 7 squared minus 3 times 7. Let me just remove this. Yeah, it's going to be 7 squared minus 3 times 7 plus 18. So 7 squared is 49. 49 minus 21 plus 18. You can use your calculator as well. 49 minus 21 minus 18. We get 49 minus 29 plus 18. (49) minus 29 plus 21. If we check, yes, you will be able to finish your exam. We will be able to finish your exam. Thank you for asking that question, Louis. Thank you so much. You'll be able to finish your exam, because it will be of no purpose for you to finish the entire exam, but your answers are wrong because you're not able to verify your answers. I always advise that check your answers so that you have the correct answers and see that, no, my answers are really correct. So now we can find that after we have substituted that, we can see that, no, man, the value here, let me see, did I make a mistake? Oh, sorry, I made a mistake somewhere. It's supposed to be -18 here. It's supposed to be -18. But the factors are okay. It's supposed to be -18, because when you transpose +18 to that side, it's going to be -18. Please forgive me for that error. So now when we substitute 7 here, we're going to have our value to be greater than 0. then now that is certifying the comparison. So now we can conclude that the values which are right are the ones which we get outside this. So now we're gonna say now, therefore our x must be less than -3, or your x must be greater than 6. So in other words, this entire part, when you substitute any x value in the inequality, you're gonna have a true solution. And also on the right hand side, when you substitute a value which is greater than 6, we're gonna have a true value. Then now we can have this true. Oh, someone can say, no, I cannot. Sometimes you don't want to write it in this way. You can even say that from -infinity to -3. Since our inequality is like this, which means it's not included, you can even say that x is the element, then you open a bracket, from -infinity to -3, or from +6 to infinity. Then after that, these are your two answers. There's always a mark for this. It's always the case you have to do like this, because they want to see. That's why it's a 4-mark question. There is mark for the final and to be able to conceptualize the question. Any question? Any question? Any question? Okay, seems like no one has a question. Seems like no one have a question. Now let's move forward. We're gonna go to 1.2 right now. Oh my word, solving x and y simultaneously. Those are the nice questions. It's always 6-7 marks. You have to grab those marks. Now, we have been taught how to solve for x. We know that we have to apply our algebraic skills. So coming to this instant, we are given that 2y plus x is equal to 1 plus x is equal to 1, and we are also given that x squared plus y squared plus 3xy plus y is equal to 0. Now, in this question which we are having right now, I always advise that as you are given those two equations like that, just write this is equation number 1 and this is equation number 2. Now, if this is the equation number 2, now we have to formulate equation number 3. So you have to write this small English to say that from equation 1, so that the examiner, the marker of your paper will know that, no, you know what you are doing. So now, from equation number 1, we have to make, in this case, we're going to make x the subject of the formula. So our x will be equal to 1 minus 2y. Then this will be our equation number 3. So first thing, when you're solving a simultaneous equation, look for it. Then now, formulate in equation 3 so that you can be able to substitute in another equation, because these questions is always like this, in a manner that they're going to give you x squared plus y squared. So that one which is a linear, when we're talking of functions, which is a linear function, always the case, formulate that one and have a subject of the formula. Now, the subject of formula, now in this case, I made x to be the subject of formula and I transposed 2y to the other side, then it was negative 2y. Now, let's now write this small English. We say sub equation 3. Where are you substituting your equation 3? We are substituting in equation 2. So let's solve now. Wherever we see x, we're going to replace by 1 minus 2y. Wherever we see x in our equation 2. Now, x squared, which means we have to replace by 1 minus 2y. So we're going to have 1 minus 2y all squared. Then plus y squared plus 3y. There is that x. Don't forget, wherever we see y, we have to substitute by 1 minus 2y. Okay, then we have plus y to be equal to 0. Then now let's solve this thing. We know how to solve it. Now 1 minus 2y is always the same like as 1 minus 2y. 1 minus 2y. You are expanding the bracket. Then plus y squared plus 3y times 1, it's positive 3y. 3y times negative 2y is going to be negative 6y squared. We are just expanding our brackets. Plus y equal to 0. Now we have to solve also this one and expand this one. It's going to be 1 minus 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2y. Negative 2y times 1, it's negative 2y. Then negative 2y times negative 2y is going to be positive 4y squared. So in other words, I'm trying to say that when you're solving, it's always like this. Then you go like this. That's how you expand that bracket and solve and simplify it. Okay, let's proceed. We have plus y squared plus 3y minus 6y squared plus y equal to 0. Now, let's look for like terms. We have 4y squared plus y squared minus 6y squared. When we say 4y squared plus y squared, we get 5y squared. Then 5y squared minus 6y squared, we get negative y squared. Now, let's go now. Negative 2y minus negative 2y minus 2y, it's negative 4y. Then negative 4y plus 3y, that will be negative y. Then negative y plus y, that will be 0. Then now we are only left with that positive 1 equal to 0. If you can't just, if this is going to be confusing for you, let me just write it so that you can see what I'm saying. It's going to be 1 minus, we group like terms now. This is negative 2y minus 2y is 4y. We have positive 3y that side. We have also plus y. We're also now going to 4y squared plus 4y squared plus y squared minus 6y squared equal to 0. So in other words, we have grouped the like terms so that they can be next to each other. So by so doing, so that you cannot be confused. So if you do this step, you're going to end up having this solution. Let me just do this so that... Now we have negative y squared plus 1 equal to 0. When you divide all through by negative 1, we're going to have y squared minus 1. Divide by negative 1, we divide by negative 1 so that our y squared can be positive. We're going to have y squared minus 1 is equal to 0. Or when you are here, someone can be like, no, I'll solve it in this way. You can just say transpose negative y side to that side. You're going to left with 1 equal to y squared. Then after that, you can just put the square root. But now the square root must be plus or minus. Then our y will be plus or minus 1. So there's always many ways to kill a cat. Now, on this one which I was doing, this is now a difference of two squares. So a difference of two squares, we all know that is going to be y minus 1 and y plus 1 equal to 0. Then we solve and we get y to be equal to 1 or y equal to negative 1. Then you have your x values, your y values. But you are not yet done. Remember, this is only y values. Now we want the x values now. So now it won't be hard. It's now easy because we have the y values. We know that for y, you can just write that for y. Sorry, for x, your y will be equal to, your x will be equal to 1 minus 2 times 1, or x will be equal to 1 minus 2 times negative 1. Then you can use your calculator, or 1 minus 2 is just always negative 1, or x is equal to positive 3. Then you are done. It seems to be long, but it's really nice, and it's really changing. It's really changing. It's really changing. Now, this is a simultaneous equation. That's how you solve for a simultaneous equation. It's a long. Always, when you are having this question like this, always make sure that you check on what you have. Giving those two equations, formulate your equation 3 from those equations. Then after that, you substitute them and you solve them. Is there anyone with any question? Is there anyone with any question? Is there anyone with any question? Okay, let's move forward. I'm gonna do the last question now on solving for x. I'm gonna do the last question on solving for x on 1.3. So on 1.3, we are given if f of x is equal to 0, has roots x is equal to -5 plus or minus square root of 3 minus 12k squared divided by 4, for which values of k will be the roots equal. Now, when we're talking about the roots, this is basically the knowledge of discriminants. So always when we are asked about equal roots, which means the discriminant is equal to 0. If they say unequal roots, which means the discriminant is less than 0. Then if they say they are of real roots, which means the discriminant is greater or equal to 0. So now in this question now, we know that our discriminant is represented by b squared minus 4ac. Now we know that according to our quadratic equation, which we showed earlier, that x is equal to -b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. This simply means that it's -b plus or minus square root of the discriminant. We can check this because you said that our discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. It's the same as this one. So now in our question, which we are given on 1.3 now, we are having that for which values of k will the roots be equal. So the roots will be equal, which means the determinant is equal to 0. So now we know that the discriminant is the one which is under this square root. So in this equation, which you are given -5 plus or minus square root of 3 minus 12k squared, we just have to pick that is 3 minus 12k squared equal to 0. Then after that, we solve for the value of k, because this in the equation which you are given there is representing the discriminant. So now solving that, it won't be hard now, because we know that -12k squared is equal to -3, because we transpose +3 to the other side. Then we divide by -12. We divide both sides by -12. Then we have k squared to be equal to 1/4. But now we don't want k squared, we only want the values of k. Then your k squared, you square both sides, plus or minus square root of 1/4. Always the case when you're squaring, don't forget to put plus or minus so that you can have two values. Then this and this will cancel each other, then you are left with k equal to plus or minus, then the square root of 1/4, it's 1/2. The square root is 1/2. So basically what they were asking for is these two values. So now finally we can just say, therefore our k values is plus or minus 1/2. Plus or minus 1/2. Then you are done. So this is basically our question 1. This is basically our question 1, and we can see that it's 24 marks. It's 24 marks. So it's so easy. We are done with our question 1 for solving for x. This was grade 11. We are done with it, and it is really easy. Really easy. Don't worry yourself, it's really easy. Now we're gonna do solving for x for grade 12 stuff. We're gonna do solving for x for grade 12 stuff. So we're gonna take a short break of 2 minutes. Then after 2 minutes, we come back again. Then we do the solving for x question 1 for grade 12s. Then we'll be done. Is there anyone with any question? Please don't be afraid. Any question, team? Any question, Fukani? Any question? Please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that liking so that we can always be notified about what's going on and when we are live. So we're gonna take a 2-minute break right now. Gonna take only a 2 minutes break so that you can be able to come back and we do solving for x on the grade 12 part. Thank you. Don't go away. Just go up, stand up and stretch yourself so that you can be ready for our next session. Thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back. Our break is over. Welcome back. Gonna do the last section on solving for x. Solving for x. We are looking at our grade 12 paper now. You can check it. It's grade 12, 2017. So now we have to solve for x. You can see the questions are the same. They are almost similar. So the same way they said the questions in grade 11 is the same way they'll ask you in grade 12 as well. The same question they will ask you as well. Okay. Without wasting any time, let's hit the road now. Question 1 on this question paper is saying solve for x on x squared plus 9x plus 14 equal to 0. We say that if you are given this question, just look for the factors for this quadratic equation. Then after that, you can be able to solve it clearly. So what you are supposed to do just right now is that you have to look for the factors of this. And we say, when you say 7 times 4, 7 times 2, we get 14. We get 14. But what is important is our middle term. When we add or subtract these two values, are they going to give us the middle term? So when we say plus 7 plus 2, we get positive 9. So these are our factors. Then it's just going to be x plus 7 equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. Then now solving, and your x will be equal to negative 7, or your x will be equal to negative 2. The questions are almost similar, but I believe that when we are doing more questions, more practice, it will be easy for us. So our first x will be equal to negative 7, or x is equal to negative 2. This is grade 12 final exam. The same questions on x are asked as well as the questions which are asked in grade 11. Now, without wasting much time, if there is no one with any question, we move to 1.1.2. To 1.1.2, we are given that 4x squared plus 9x minus 3 is equal to 0. Then now they say correct to 2 decimal places. Earlier we said that the moment they tell you that correct to 2 decimal place, please do not worry. There is something which you always save the day, which is the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula says x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. We know that this is our a, this is our b, and this is our c. Then now we just go to the equation which we have, then we substitute there. So we're going to have negative 9 plus or minus square root, because this is our b, 9 squared minus 4. What is our a? Our a is 4, our c is negative 3. All divided by 2 times 4. Then always just use your calculator. It's always the case, use your calculator. So when you are using your calculator, you will find that your x, let's just say negative 9 plus or minus, when you add whatever which is inside, you're gonna get 129 divided by 2 times 4, and that's 8. Then now using your calculator, someone will be like, I'm only getting one solution. It's x negative 9 plus square root of 129 over 8, or x is equal to negative 9 minus square root of 129 divided by 8. This is the same thing. All right, this is the same thing. It's just that here is plus or minus. So if you are confused by this plus or minus, this is the same as x is equal to negative 9 plus square root of 129, or x will be equal to negative 9 minus square root of 129. Then you get your answer to be equal to 0.29, or your x will be equal to negative 2.54. As well as what I said earlier, you are always as well advised to double check your answer to verify them by just substituting the values of x and substitute them into this equation, into the original equation which you have, so that it can really help you in the process. So we have our two values of x. We have our two values of x. You can use your bracket. So whenever, always, when you see something in brackets saying that correct it to decimal places, don't stress yourself. Just go direct to the, and use the equation which says that x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, or divided by 2a. Always when you see that, it's always the case. It's always the case. Now let's move to 1.1.3. We are given square root of x squared minus 5, which is equal to 2 square root of x. So as the way we solved this question earlier, it still stands. We just have to, first things, when you're given this scenario, you have to square both sides. Then when you score, this and this will cancel each other. We'll be left with x squared minus 5. When we square this side, this will be 4x. Henceforth, we know that according to the rules of exponents, when you're having a square root of b all squared, it is the same as a squared times square root of b all squared. According to the rules of exponents, this is the things which you have to know, that it is always the case that it is like that. It is always the case that it's always a squared times square root of b squared. So this square is affecting everything which is inside the bracket. So when we square this side, it's going to be 2 squared times root of x squared according to this. Now we're going to have 4x, because 2 squared is 4, and we're going to have 4x. Then we can solve now. X squared, we transpose 4x to this side to be negative 4x minus 5 is equal to 0. Now we have a quadratic equation. As always, you have to find your factors. So the factors of 5, we have 5 and 1. 5 times 1 is 5. When we say negative 5 plus 1, we get negative 4. So these will be our factors. Oh, If finding factors is hard for you, I always advise you that just use the quadratic formula. It is always there for you. Just use the quadratic formula, then substitute. Then you're going to get direct answers. You don't have to change anything. You just have to write your direct answers. Now, you're going to have our x minus 5 to be equal to 0. Or your x plus 1 is equal to 0. Then your x will be equal to 5, or your x will be equal to negative 1. Now, as what we did earlier, we have to verify our answer. Especially when we are given a square root, we have to verify our answer so that we see what is the correct answer. So when we are verifying, we start by 5. Let's start by 5. When you substitute 5 there, 5 squared it's 25. When you substitute by 5, so it's going to be 5 squared minus 5. 5 squared is 25. 25 minus 5, it's 20. Then here we have root 20. Then on this side, when you say 2 times root of 5, when you use your calculator, these two will be equal. But when you are using negative 1 now, negative 1 squared, it's 1. 1 minus 5, square root of negative number, it's always undefined. So we now have to say, therefore, our x is equal to positive 5. Don't forget to conclude. It's a must that you conclude, because there is a mark for conclusion. There is a mark for this one. There's a mark for this one. There's a mark for you to be somewhere, to be here. There's also a mark there. So please don't forget. Please don't forget to have your final answer, which you're going to select on your own. Now, moving forward, is there anyone with any question? Is there anyone with any question? Is there anyone with any question? Okay, let's move forward. 1.2, we are asked you to solve for x and y simultaneously. Oh my word, this is amazing. The same questions they ask you over and over, the same setting of questions is always the same. So here we are given 1.2, we are given 3x minus y is equal to 4, and we are also given x squared plus 2xy minus y squared is equal to negative 2. Is equal to negative 2. So that will be, now, as I said earlier, now this is going to be your equation 1, and this is going to be your equation 2. Now you have to formulate your equation 3 looking at your linear equation. So this is your linear equation. So you can just say from equation 1, we have to have 3x minus 4 is equal to y. Because you're going to make y the subject of the formula, you transpose it and you place it this side, and you transpose this one and come to this side. Then you're going to have 3x minus 4 is equal to y, and make this your equation number 3. Now we have to substitute our equation number 3 into equation number 2 now, so that this is easy for you. So wherever we see y, don't worry yourself, place that equation 3. So let's write this more English. We say that substitute equation number 3 into equation number 2. So wherever we see y, we place our equation here. So we're going to have x squared plus 2x, there's that y. We have to place 3x minus 4. Minus, what is our y squared? Our y squared is 3x minus 4 all squared. Then we equate it to negative 2. As always, we have to solve our question as always. This is going to be x squared, then 2x times 3x is 6x squared, then 2x times negative 4, it's negative 8x, minus, then this one you expand it again as what we did earlier on. So it's gonna be 3x minus 4 Let me just do something which is going to make this clear. Then 3x minus 4. This way you are expanding it. So we're going to have, this is going to be x squared plus 6x squared. These are numbers. These are variables with the same, which are the same, which are like terms. So it's going to be 7x squared minus 8x minus. Then solving this one now, that won't be hard because it's 3x times 3x. You're going to get 9x squared. 3x times negative 4, you're going to have negative 12x. Negative 4 times negative times positive 3x, you're also going to have negative 12x. So negative 12x minus negative 12x, it's negative 24x. Then negative 4 times negative 4, you're going to have positive 16 equal to negative 2. Now, come on, let's go. 7x squared minus 8x squared. So this negative sign is multiplying the entire bracket. Okay, so it's going to be negative times negative times positive 9x is going to be negative 9x squared. Then this negative times negative 24, you're going to have positive 24x. Then this negative times positive 16, you're going to have negative 16. Then we transpose this negative 2 to this side, then it's going to be positive 2 is equal to 0. Then now we can group our like terms now. So when we are grouping our like term, we can figure that 2x squared minus 9x squared is going to give us negative 2x squared. The negative 8x plus 24x, we see that these are common factors. It's going to give us positive 16x. Then negative 16 plus 2, that will give us negative 14 equal to 0. So if you can't solve from this step, you can see that this is a quadratic formula equation already. I highly advise you, just use your quadratic equation. Just use your quadratic equation and plug it in the quadratic formula so that you can get the two values which you must have. So your two values which you're gonna have in this instance is that you're gonna have, or you can there's a common factor is negative 2. We can divide everything by negative 2. We can divide everything by negative 2, all over by negative 2. So when you divide, you're gonna be left with x squared minus 8x plus 7 is equal to 0. Then after that, we can find our factors. Of course, x and x equal to 0. Then the factors of 7, it's 1 times 7. So we have 1 and we have 7. So now when we say 7 plus 1, we get 8. But this 8 is negative. So when we say negative 7 minus 1, we get negative 8, which is our middle term. That's how you solve it using factors. But if you're gonna struggle using factors, I highly advise use the quadratic formula. It is always there to save your day. It is always there to see your way out. So now we're gonna solve is equal to 0, or x minus 1 is equal to 0. Then your x will be equal to, you transpose negative 7, it's gonna be positive 7, or your x is equal to positive 1. But you are not yet done, because we are in search of x and y. We say solve simultaneously x and y. So in this case, we only have x and we only have y. We now want to for y. So we have to write also for y. So wherever we see x, you substitute our these values. So our y will now be equal to, we still remember that we have that equation which we created above, which is equation 3, which is saying y will be equal to 3x minus 4. So now, since we found the values of x, we have to substitute in the equation the value of x which we found, so that we can get the value now of y. So it's going to be 3. Then on the position of x, we put our 7. Then we say minus 4, or our y will be equal to 3 times 1 minus 4. Then your y this side will be equal to, this is 21 minus 4 at 17, or y will be equal to 3 times 1 is 1, it's 3 minus 4 is negative 1. then you get your two answers. So you are done solving your equation simultaneously. Is there anyone with any question? Is there anyone with any question? Is there anyone with any question? Okay. Seems like no one, everyone understand. Let's proceed to our last question, which we're gonna do now. Now, given f of x, given f of x to be equal to x squared plus 8x plus 16. We are now on 1.3 now. We are almost done. Given this equation now, they are saying now solve for x if f of x is greater than 0. So we are given that f of x is equal to x squared plus 8x plus 16. Okay. Now, they are saying to us, solve for x if f of x is greater than 0. Now, this is already an inequality because our f of x is equal to x squared plus 8x plus 16. So we substitute this place by just saying x squared plus 8x plus 16 must be greater than 0. Easy. Then if it's here now, we can solve it and find factors so that we can have correct answers, correct factors. Okay, we know that our factors will be x plus 4 and x plus 4, which is greater than 0. Or you can use the quadratic formula so that you can find the values of x. So now, we can do it now. We are not done. We said that earlier. We must be able to finalize our question that these are our answers so that we can have a correct answer. Okay. So in this case, you can even say critical values. The critical values will be x plus 4 and x plus 4 equal to 0. Then x plus 4 is equal to 0, or x plus 4 is equal to 0. Then x will be equal to negative 4, or x will be equal to negative 4. Wow. So after that, you have to be able to conclude, because this is an inequality, which means you must be able to conclude. So in this case, our answers are the same. But now, x must always be the element of real numbers, having the fact that x must not be equal to negative 4. Or it's always the case that x is an element of real numbers where x is not going to be equal to negative 4. You can do your number line as well again so that you can be able to prove yourself again. You'll find out. Let's just do it right now. Say we have negative 4 here. Then this is the positive side. You'll be able to see. If you do your number line, you'll be able to see that when you are concluding, we're going to say that it's going to have x is the element of real numbers where x is not equal to negative 4. Or now, that's where you're going to say x must be less than negative 4, or x must be greater than negative 4, because you're going to find these values which is going to make the inequality true on this part, which is not exactly at negative 4. So it must be less than negative 4 or greater than negative 4. That's our 1.3.1. Is there anyone with any question? Is there anyone with any question? Is there anyone with any question? Now, let's do the last part now, which is 1.3.2. So now, on 1.3.2, they are saying that for which values of p will f of x equal to p have two unequal, underline that part, unequal roots. This part, it's important. Unequal roots. Unequal roots. So when you're talking of unequal negative roots, which means our determinant is less than 0. So we are already given that f of x must be equal to p. What is our f of x? Our f of x is x squared plus 8x minus plus 16 must be equal to p. So now we have to find the two distinctive roots. So we can just have our quadratic formula as always. That is going to be x squared plus 8x plus 16 minus p equal to 0. Now, in order for us to have two distinct negative roots, we always know that the discriminant is less than, always the case that the discriminant must be less than 0 to an equal root. So after that, we're gonna just, we know that our discriminant must be b squared minus 4ac less than 0. What is our b? Our b is 8 squared. What is our a? It's 1. And our c now is this entire part, which is 16 minus p, which is supposed to be less than, which is supposed to be less than 0. Okay. So our discriminant, let me just repeat that part. Our discriminant will be less than 0. Then we're going to have b squared minus 4ac less than 0. Because they are unequal negative roots. Unequal negative roots. So if they are unequal negative roots, we're going to have this scenario. This must be greater than, this must be greater than, since they are unequal and negative roots. So solving that, you're going to have 64 minus 4 times 16, negative 4, 16 minus p greater than 0. We will see that this is going to be equal to 64 minus 64 plus 4p greater than 0. We can solve this easily because we're going to have 4p. We're going to have our 4p. Please don't forget to ask questions if you don't understand anything. Please don't forget to ask questions if you don't understand anything. Please don't forget to ask any question if you don't understand anything. So 4p is greater than 0. Or 4p greater than 0, we're going to have p greater than 0. We have another value now. So now, for both roots to be negative, you can write that for both to be negative, now for both roots to be negative, we just have to have the square root of 4p, which is less than 8. And in order for us to solve, we know that we have to square both sides. Then we're going to have 4p less than 64. Then solving for p, we divide both sides by 4. Divide by 4, then we have our p, which is less than 16. So now we have two values of p. As we can see here, we have p greater than 0 and we have p less than 16. Now, in order for us, because this is an equality, we have to conclude our answer now. So we can say that therefore it's from 0 less than p, because we said we have 0, the value of p 0, p must be less than 0 and but less than 16. So this is the last question which we are doing today. So please, if you have any question, don't forget to ask. You can use the WhatsApp group which we have. You can ask your questions anytime. You will be responded to. Always, from today's tutorial, we were solving for x. We were trying to do question 1. I hope everyone was able to be helped. Till we meet next time, have a great evening. Thank you.